Well, welcome and thanks for joining us. Whether you are participating live or listening to the recording, we're thrilled you're with us today. Thanks for joining us for a Succession series. Uh, so this is really about helping owners and leaders grow, go, or let go. So whatever situation you're in, hopefully you have some great takeaways today. This idea to do this Succession series was a light bulb moment that really came as a function of our weekly light bulb moments. Remind you, join us live on Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Central Time for light bulb moments, or listen to the podcast or the recording. And anyway, we just had this moment of sudden realization or inspiration, and it wasn't really so sudden. It was an accumulation of multiple things that really made me realize that there's a need to get out some succession-related information and guidance on a semi-urgent basis because of three situations that happened within 10 days of themselves. So I decided that what we do is really as an act of sort of public service, if you will, to give three different webinars that would help provide some guidance for those of you out there that are looking to let go or just want to grow but understand what it looks like to eventually work on your succession plan. Hearing some heartbreaking stories of businesses that have closed, that with the right kind of guidance, the right kind of information and education and confidence, they would have put themselves in a position where they monetized their, in many cases, life's work, and their business could successfully move on to the next generation of owners. Our goal really is to have all parties be in an even better place in the future than they are now. So this is a three-part series. The first part was really myths and traps, certain things that you should know. We also, during that process, helped you create a format to discover what your why is and really where you fall in. Are you in a grow, go, let go, or some combination or some sequence? Also succession options and several myths and traps that really, hopefully you found relevant on that particular session. Session 2, which was 2 weeks ago, was about valuations and a deeper dive into what your business is worth, including some metrics, formulas, some case studies, etc. And we had a 9 grid that was the basis of this course. We talked about the KPI no one's talking about, different rules about valuation, common formulas, ranges, and several other matters. Both of these are available by recording. I think it's available for a limited time only, though, however. And then today we are going to get into this subject of readiness, the key to a successful succession plan. And much of this comes from a course that we created, a succession course that I've taught through the years, but updated October, and then updated again substantially in February of 2024 to include a new workbook, new tools, etc., as well as a very special collaboration with Heath Smith. In there, we go through a format of what to know, how to plan, and what to do for a successful succession scenario. And included in this is some supplements, including some checklists, a deeper dive into valuation matters, a section in the back of the workbook to keep notes, some technical advisors, and then common topics that come once you get to the actual transaction. The actual transaction is usually the last part of the process, and it's not the easiest part of the process, but getting to the point where you have a transaction is the focal point of this, because that is the true point, is where you get to the point where you want to pull the trigger, which could simply mean that you bring in a partner, make a key employee a owner, find a way for you to let go a little bit in the business through allowing a plan for someone to become an owner, or a full exit, full go from the business. Case studies are so important. And I think that what's unique about the work that we do is the number of case studies we have and the salon and spa specific nature of them. And these case studies provide lessons for all of us. And in getting ready for an updated version of this program, I went back to several clients. I worked with about 50 clients over about a 5-year process, and then really moved away from doing one-on-one support. But these case studies, I had the opportunity to re-engage with several people last fall to do a deeper dive into their situation. In certain cases, I lost touch with these individuals because they sold their business, they're on to what's next. And it was great to get connected with them, to find out what they're up to, what they learned, what they wish they did different, what they're glad they did. So case studies is a really, really big part of the way that we educate. And I'm not going to go through all the case studies. There's several case studies that really represent a variety of different scenarios. Several of them are key employees. Some case studies happen to do with a transition that related to buying a local business. There's also family business, so all sorts of different scenarios. And the good news is that each situation is unique and separate, and each scenario can be customized for your situation. At the same time, there's a lot of common lessons, and that's really what we look at, is what are the lessons that you can use to help you move forward in whatever your plan is. Note to participants, this is education. This is not advice. It's not a substitute for advice from a professional advisor. As I said, each situation is different and unique. Use common sense when applying this education and case studies. I also want to clarify that I was a CPA, a licensed CPA for 13 years, which was over 20,000 hours as a CPA. But I'm no longer a CPA, but I certainly have a lot of the wisdom and a lot of the experience that comes from not only a career, early part of my career as a CPA, but also since then in a variety of different situations where I personally have owned and sold businesses, and all of these things form the basis of what we can do to help you. So let's jump right in. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time just talking about readiness. Readiness is a very important term to understand. And the good news is that it's a common term. And just by its very term, it almost defines itself. It really is getting ready for a succession, full, partial, or whatever. And readiness is defined by the exit planning community as the different steps needed to get the business ready, the owner ready. And then I think what's unique about what we teach is that most educators leave it at that. They look at business readiness and owner readiness. We add a third category, and that is buyer readiness, because most of the situations that we see in the salon and spa industry are key employee transfers or family transfers, where getting the buyer ready is something that's important to all parties. So we're gonna spend a little bit of time on each today: business readiness, owner readiness, and buyer readiness. So in the course, we actually have checklists around this, and we have a 9 grid and just different ways to really break down the different steps to get the business ready. And I'm not going to go through all of them today. You've got the highlights on the screen. And here's 9 that we cover: financial management, contracts and legal, real estate, systems, performance, team, valuations, and ultimately we have a tool that's a checklist to help you get the business ready. I'm just going to cover a few of them from business readiness. And the first one I'm going to get to is financial management. And the time to get your books in order is now. And there's several reasons for that. Well, because in most cases, there will be evaluation performed, and there will be some number that's attached to the business, which requires a look back of usually at least 3 years. So even if you're 3 years out, you really want to get your books in order right now. And there's a few different things to look at when it comes to getting your books in order. Certainly making sure that they have what we refer to as the 3 must-haves, which we teach in our profit course, which is the timing of the financials. So when they're issued each month, are you actually looking at them each month? The relevance, Are they in a format that allows for easy benchmarking and easy ways to do evaluation? And then the third must-have has to do with the quality of numbers, which is a surprisingly big issue. A lot of the financials that we see moving into a succession or a transaction, there's a lot to be desired in the numbers from any one of those. But quality is the one that's the biggest concern. So financial management, get your books in order now. I'm going to give you some examples of specific things to look at. Certainly inventory is one of them. And the thing is that the phrase is time kills all deals. And if you get to the point where you're ready to bring in a partner, sell your business, whatever, and you have things that are not cleaned up, it's going to delay the transaction. And in many cases, it'll prevent the deal from even going through. So inventory is a big area to cleaned up. Make sure that the inventory numbers are rock solid. I know in several of the case studies, inventory became a point of contention between buyer and seller. There was disagreements about the quality and whether certain inventory items could be included, shouldn't be included, obsolescence, all that kind of stuff. So inventory is absolutely one. Another one is gift cards. That for sure I've seen be an issue in multiple transactions where the outstanding gift card liability is a very important number because the seller of the business, that is a liability that the seller has. And if the buyer assumes that liability, it actually reduces the purchase price. So inventory, gift cards are a couple. And like I mentioned, is also the quality of the numbers, and a big area that we see quality issues has to do with your cost of sales. And other areas in your books that to take a look at is don't forget about your balance sheet and to make sure the balance sheet's cleaned up. All right, another area of business readiness has to do with your contracts and any legal agreements that you have, as well as making sure that your corporate minutes are up to date and understanding your loans. If you have any loans, and those could be government loans that relate with SBA, they could be private loans, bank loans, they could be equipment leasing type loans. So making sure that you are very aware of any and all contracts you have, whether you're going to sell your business as an asset sale or a stock sale. Certainly making sure that you have access to your agreements, that you know where they are, you're in compliance with the agreements, you're not in default, are certainly very important. Real estate's next. This is a big one. Understanding your lease thoroughly. And in particular, there's some sections to be watching for. One of them, and it's pretty obvious, is what are your lease transfer options? Do you have the ability to transfer the lease into another party other than yourself? And I would say in most cases, the language in a lease is going to be that the landlord will have to approve a transfer of a lease into another buyer. And your relationship with your landlord is a big factor. And again, I've seen deals not go through, be seriously delayed, or accelerated just based on the relationship with the landlord. Guarantees is also a big one. You know, in many cases, the owner will have a guarantee on the real estate. And in many cases, a buyer is going to avoid the guarantee at all costs, but sometimes guarantees are required in order for a deal to go through. Real estate, there's another area that I want to get to with real estate, and I do believe that that we might have sitting in today is Kevin Lighthart from Lighthart Sanders, the CPA firm. They've been a great educator as it relates to things like making sure that your business is ready from a entity type. And so Kevin Lighthart, CPA, tax guy, has provided some great advice and education. And he's actually been a sponsor of some of our workshops. So shout out to Kevin for the great work that he's doing. And so I'm going to get to one right here, and that is I've seen deals where the owner owned the business and the real estate, and they were in the same company. I know of one group out of Florida that prevented a transaction for over 2 years because they needed to decouple the two assets, the asset of the actual business and the asset of the real estate. So certainly real estate has several dimensions to it, whether it's lease transfer options, guarantees, entity, etc. Another area of readiness that's really important is systems, and systems in place so that the buyer or new partner is able to successfully manage this business, and systems is very, very important in terms of business readiness. Now, we like to use what we call 5 functions at Qnity, which is a way to structure the business into 5 key functions. And that alone will help you build the kind of structure so that this is a sustainable business that will last into the next generation. So those are a few things that come from business readiness. And this has to do with understanding the fact that the business is its own entity, distinct and separate from the seller. I would say 95% of the businesses that we see are either a S corporation or a limited liability company. And by definition, those are separate entities from the owner. So let's get to seller readiness for a moment. You know, in the first session in this series, I did go through some myths and traps, so I'm not going to repeat those. Certainly, seller readiness, education is the first place I'm going to go to. And really understanding what it's looked like and what the process is to move into a succession, again, whether it's a full succession or partial, like bringing in a partner. So you can't really go wrong with education. You know, in many cases, this is the single largest transaction in someone's life, and it's worth putting some attention and time into it, and that's going to come from education, which is what we're a big believer in. Education will unlock the key to a lot of landmines that you may walk in or may walk around without education. So education on a lot of different things, for example, areas, in many areas that we cover in our course, for example. Commitment. Seller readiness is also committing to a process. And that process could be a long, slow, steady process. But it is committing to a process and making sure that you find some time and create some structure to strategically move things along, in most cases in a very busy environment where you don't have more time for anything else. You're already pretty well committed in your business. That's not true of all of you. Now, when we say committed to a process, I sort of have a default that I work on here. And someone's timeline could be very short and compressed. For example, we had someone in our February class that had a buyer, and she was ready. She was ready like a few years ago. And so her time frame is short, between 6 and 9 months. But in most cases, people are looking out well beyond that. And I do sort of have a default that I work off of. When in the absence of any other information, we do find that 3 years is a pretty decent time to be looking at, and which is why we created something called 13X, which essentially is 12 quarters. 12 quarters equals 3 years, and then we allow another quarter. So that's the idea behind 13X, is to take 13 quarters to be succession ready. That is very comfortable for many people, but it does mean you need to be taking action every quarter, and that's part of what we introduce in a tool called our 13X Planner, is making sure that you structure your process so that you're always working towards it, but it doesn't feel overwhelming. 3 years allows time to really understand the valuation of your business. It gives you time to move the valuation of your business and drive it. It gives you time to get ready get all of the different things ready, whether it's real estate related, whether it's financial related, et cetera. So, but it really is key for a seller to be committed to a process. Again, in the absence of any other information, we love to really look at 3 years as a time frame. I'm going to go into the chat here because I don't know if there are questions. I think the questions really relate to previous sessions. So, okay, I'm going to keep moving here. Seller readiness is also have to get to the subject of personal finance and making sure that you have a personal financial plan, that you're working with advisors, whether it's a personal financial planner or someone to really understand what you need, for either retirement or the next act. So cannot separate personal finance from this whole process. And it's something that you need to be working on early on. So that is definitely a key to seller readiness. Other areas that really relate with seller readiness is defining what your next act is going to look like. Maybe it is retirement. Maybe it is moving into a new career. Maybe it's going back to school. Maybe it's working at a zoo like Carrie Bennett's been doing after she sold her business. There's unlimited opportunities for what the next act look like. Next act, I personally was a salon owner for many, many years. And my next act for me has been very, very fulfilling. And I have no regrets of selling my ownership in a salon. And I like to celebrate the opportunity to do things different and new in life. Not everybody wants to own a salon deep, deep, deep into their later years. Advisors is a big area, making sure you have the right advisors. There's also buyer's or seller's remorse that we address. And then we have a checklist, which I'll show you in a little bit here. Buyer readiness. Well, so most would say it's not my problem to get the buyer ready. And, the buyer, and that is true, the buyer has their own accountability to get ready. But keep in mind that most transactions in the salon and spa industry are key employees. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that. Part of it is most salons and spas are micro businesses, which are under 5 million in revenue. And they're really not great candidates for a business broker. They're not great candidates for an ESOP. And usually the best option, an exciting option, one I love key employee transitions, is so buyer readiness and key employees. Let me go to a few areas on that. Risk tolerance is a big one. Just because someone's a key employee and is a great manager or great stylist on the floor, whatever, doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be a great owner. Entrepreneurship is not for everybody. And having honest conversations with a member of your team, and what we like to do is break it into what we call preneurship and identify what is their risk tolerance. In many cases, they just want to be an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur doesn't have the risk of being an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur, is a business within a business, comes to work, does their job, goes home, and may have a ton of other interests and just doesn't want to be the one that gets called when the hot water heater goes out, or when you can't make payroll because of some unusual situation. Reminds me of one that actually happened a week ago. We actually had someone at the Phil, and she had to leave a day early because someone hacked into her bank account and everything was in one bank. And so she couldn't make payroll, and it's kind of a disaster. But anyway, business was in strong shape, but that's not for everybody's stomach. Not everybody really has the stomach to be an entrepreneur. And having very candid conversations with the buyer, if it's a key employee or a family member, that what it's really like to be an entrepreneur. And in certain cases, a buyer might talk themselves out of it once they understand what goes into it. So I think really honest conversations about what it looks like to be a business owner is certainly part of buyer readiness. Um, Personal finance, and I'm going to talk about credit rating for a moment. So I was part of a multiple year, pretty complicated set of succession situation where there was a 7-location business that was spun out to 7 individual stylists. And it was very complicated, very unique, breakthrough, very cool. And my job was to help create the structure around this. I helped them, make sure they had the right lawyer, the right accountant, whatever. And I also met with every key employee that was a candidate to see if they would be eligible to buy one of these locations. And one of the first things that we got to was credit rating, and also, is there any bankruptcies? And in certain cases, the individuals voted themselves off the island, so to speak, because their credit rating was very, very low. Or maybe they had a bankruptcy, which down the road, these things could prevent them from getting financing. So, certainly now, if you're 3 years out and someone does not have a strong credit rating, it can be corrected, which is why we call it readiness. So it's not a deal breaker. And then also making sure that whoever the buyer is, that they have a plan to actually pull this off. And, so I want to mention that too. Other areas of buyer readiness has to do with financing, how the transaction will be financed. Buyers need their own advisors. The seller and the buyer, for example, need their own tax specialist as well as attorney. There's also buyer's remorse, and that was something to come out of the structured interviews I did last fall with multiple parties. I asked buyers, what remorse did you have? What was it? And I'm not going to get into that now, but there are common areas of remorse, and we want to prevent remorse. Okay, so I'm looking at the time, and this is about the length of these sessions. We want to respect your day here. So a few other things here. We find it useful to use our succession strategy checklist, which is a way to really list out all of the common areas of readiness that might apply to you. And then this becomes the basis of turning it into a plan, for example, a 13-quarter plan. So some examples of business readiness could be obtain a baseline valuation, make sure whatever entity the business is in, it's right, is an S Corp, LLC, is real estate separated if you also own the real estate, inventory. So just a few examples. Seller financing, is interesting. I had someone in an October class we talked, and he had a business, and he realized that one step that he could make immediately was talk to his family. He just assumed that no one in his family was interested in buying the business. So don't take that for granted. So family conversations are very important to this, and that's one example. Personal finance I mentioned, and then buyer, in certain cases, a potential buyer, it's about expressing interest with the owner and say, hey, if you're ever interested in selling the business, bringing in a partner, I'm interested, so make me part of that conversation. So succession strategy checklist is really important in terms of creating a structured plan, and that's part of what we help do. All right, so that is part 3. I've got some more for you. I want to share with you just some updates here, but hopefully you found this helpful. Part 3, readiness, key to successful sale. Remember, readiness is broken down between business, seller, and buyer readiness. It's great to structure that, be super specific, and hope you found that useful. All right, so we have a couple of new options and how we're available to help you. One is a master class, which is coming up this fall. And the other one, this is brand new, brand new, is a succession circle. Now, keep in mind that usually on Light Bulb Moments, which is weekly, I mentioned that, whether it's you listen to it by live or podcast or on YouTube, very, very often I do have some succession related stories, content, updates, etc. So that's free. We do have a master class coming up here, and we have a QR code. It's coming up Monday, October 7th. It's all day. We've done this in the past. We did one in February that was a little shorter, but we've expanded the content. We've added a little bit more meat to the bones to that. And that is coming up Monday, October 7th. It is live. It's right by Mall of America, right by the airport in Minneapolis. It's a hotel we love. Room rates are very affordable. It's for current business owners and or key employees interested in purchasing, as well as potential owners. You'll learn a variety of different things, including valuation, choices you need to make now, what's needed to create an exit plan. And the price for this is $14.95. What's not published here is that we do often recommend that 2 people come, and that price is $24.95. We do have 20% off for those of you that participate in this. It expires on Friday, May 31st at midnight, 20% off. You can use that code. And Heath Smith, partner in crime here. We're a pretty good duo here. Heath does a great job of facilitating the session, helping with the execution part of it. And so I'm a little bit more about the know, and he's a little bit more about the do. So that will be co-taught by Heath Smith and myself. Next, and this is brand new, is we are forming a succession circle. It's going to be limited to 13 spots. It's going to start in July, and it will last for a full year. This is for a single owner or married partner. So if it's 2 people that are married, they can join this together. This does require an application process. We are going to vet this group to make sure it's a good fit. So there's a QR code here that you would use to apply to be part of this group. It includes an upfront discovery. And by the way, this is the closest to one-on-one work that we do because we don't do one-on-one work, but there are 4 one-on-one sessions. There's an upfront discovery and assessment. There's also 8 group sessions, which is really powerful because you feel like you're part of a community, have some accountability, you learn from each other. It's all subject to confidentiality agreement. It's private. There's also 4 live sessions with technical experts, whether it's legal, tax, business valuation, etc. It also includes a $300 to $500 credit towards evaluation with a valuation provider that we have a partnership with. Admission in this is not guaranteed, and we will create a wait list if we fill the group, and we expect we will. There are no plans for a second group, and so if you want to be part of this, you should get an application in soon. There's facilitation. It's a tailored experience, and you're going to have access to lots of resources and insights. So again, Heath Smith will be part of that group. Both of us will be co-leading that, and it is going to help you gain confidence, or all of these are going to help you gain confidence, be prepared, maximize the value of your business, and get educated. And in the fall class, it includes 1 ticket, the workbook, case studies, tools, data trends. There's also a 60-minute tax session with Kevin Lightheart, or a member of Kevin Lightheart's team at Lightheart Sanders. There's also access to some online education. And for the class, we recommend 2 people. And it does include the 13X tool and helps you jumpstart that to really break down your transition plan or bring in a partner at whatever time frame you want. You can compress this. It doesn't have to be 13 quarters, but it's a super helpful tool to use. We also go through several tips, including a tip that could save you 6 figures, go through tons of case studies. And so reminder, Succession Masterclass, we have until Friday, 20% off, October 7th. It's an open. You don't need to apply for that. And then there's a Succession Circle, which does require an application, and we're going to put together this group in the upcoming weeks. So I hope you find this helpful. I am going to check the chat here, but thank you for joining us. And I think at this point, we'll end the recording, and I will look at the chat and see if there's any questions that that come up here. What is the cost for the circle? To be honest with you, I don't know the cost of the circle. I'm sorry, but it is a premium. It is a premium price. And actually, okay, so someone put this in here. It starts at $12.50 a month. However, there is a requirement for a relatively substantial deposit on this because we are looking for people that are committed in this. And let's just see what else has come up here. I'm bringing a former employee to how do I structure compensation? Oh my, that's a loaded question, Melissa here. I'm bringing in a former employee. It's how do I structure compensation? It's a bit of a deeper dive, Melissa. I love the question. And I'm seeing some other questions come in here. Phantom stock. Phantom stock is, let me see if Kevin answered this. Yes, Kevin answered what phantom stock is. It's well defined by Kevin. I don't think I could have said it any better. Phantom stock is a type of equity compensation that provides employees with some of the benefits of stock ownership without actually giving them company stock. I love phantom stock. You just don't see it as often as I'd expect. And let's see what else is coming up here. How many months? Yes, the succession circle is 12 months. We'll start with some upfront discovery, and then we're going to be getting going. I believe it's on Thursday afternoons. We picked a time that's convenient for most people, and where Heath and or I, we know are available. And so that's what I have. I don't see any other questions. I'll stick around just a moment here, but thanks for participating. I hope you got value out of these sessions. We'd love to see you at the succession class. If you're interested in being part of the circle, definitely get an application in sooner rather than later because we are going to assemble this group. And we will wish all of you the very best. Thanks for joining us. If you listen to the recording, thanks for joining us and listening to the recording. So, all right, all I have for you today. Thanks again.